So that was the session on diversifying your workforce. My goodness me, didn't we go through some interesting exercises there? So thank you so much for getting involved and participating. It was great to have that. I had Siobhan at my left-hand side who was furiously writing up the notes as you were putting those through. What's happening right now is they're having a bit of a break in the room here, so there's a 15-minute break, I believe, until the next session. But there are some questions. I think if Becky could get hold of the questions, that would be really good. Actually, why don't you come and read them to me, because I can't. Okay. But do we want the questions for the debate? Oh, actually, Derry will know them, so that's cool. Yeah, perfect. Right, okay, so we will get the questions that we want to embroider into the debate, but keep sending your tweets down. Keep contacting us with the hashtag #StrongVoices15. And I'm now joined by Derry, who's got all of the answers on the debate that we're going to have shortly. I mean, that was a fantastic session that we just had now, but we want to keep you with us. We don't want you to go anywhere for the next hour and a half at least. But there's a debate coming at the end of the day. And Derry, tell us more about what the questions are and how you chose them and how they came to be.
Well, we chose from, as you can imagine, some of the questions that were in the box were similar to each other. So we looked at the questions, really, all of the questions we're interested in. I think we're going to tweet those and hopefully get responses from everybody regardless.
Sure.
Because there wasn't a question that we didn't want to explore.
Brilliant.
We're just limited by time.
Yeah.
I think we chose the questions that would give us the most breadth of discussion, but also a deep discussion. So
Brilliant.
I think we've got 5 questions that have a couple of questions in two of them.
Yeah.
So we may not, in the space of an hour that we've got later on, explore all of those questions, but let's hope to get through some of them.
Right. Okay.
I don't know. Do you want me to talk about the questions?
Yeah. Well, Ali, I mean, if my eyesight was better, I'd be able to read them off. But my eyesight's not so good here. So yeah.
Okay. So some of the questions on the presentation have actually been paraphrased because they were quite long. So the first question that we want to look at is how do we stop losing experiences and knowledge?
Oh, love it. Yeah.
Long known truth resurfacing as new discoveries and youth engagement. And this is the age-old question, isn't it, about actually, I think, to be fair, when we were right at the start of the Strong Voices journey, we acknowledged very clearly that this was about building on good practice that has happened for many, many years. We weren't claiming to be doing something absolutely original.
Sure.
I think the originality comes from the context that we're all now working on in, which is quite different than it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. And that will always be the case. So it might not be that we're looking at how practice needs to change or how practice has changed or approach. It's about how do we need to adapt how we do things in order to meet the needs of young people who are living, existing, learning in a brand new context that we're just getting used to, actually. So that I think could create lots of debate. That question came from an online participant.
Excellent.
Voluntary Arts Southwest, based in Bristol.
Right.
So thank you for that one.
Brilliant.
The next question, actually, I've got 3 post-it notes all wrapped up in one, so we paraphrased them.
Yeah.
And we're looking at, and really the questions look at who decides what art young people should be experiencing. Because I think sometimes we get tied up, don't we, into a situation where we're thinking about where we think it's absolutely necessary, and it is, to consult young people about what they want. Yeah. But it's the age-old question again of, we all only know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. So, there's that, how do we get young people to be able to experience the breadth of arts opportunities that will enable them to have an informed choice about what they do and where they take their passions and talents in the future. And then the quality debate, well, that could go on forever, couldn't it?
Absolutely.
So we were a bit worried about actually presenting that to the audience. What do we mean by quality? And I think what we've heard today is that quality comes in many forms, and of course we can talk about the quality of the artistic product, but it seems today the conversation has been much more about the quality of experience and the quality of the participation engagement that happens through the arts that we provide for this very particular group of disadvantaged and vulnerable young people. And then that leads me onto the next question, having just referred to young people as disadvantaged and vulnerable. And actually that was the term that went all the way through the guidance for this fund that we've used to pay for Strong Voices activity. So the third question is, how do young people want to be addressed? You know, there's this whole thing, isn't there, about disadvantaged, disaffected, disabled, discombobulated. You know, it goes on. And we did have some debate right at the beginning of Strong Voices. You know, how do we refer to young people? You know, is it a case of labelling young people? And for me, I think just by being a young person, you become vulnerable, don't you? Show me a young person who isn't vulnerable.
Absolutely.
So,
wow.
What do we mean by that? So that we think will create a nice debate.
We have some great questions in. I mean, this is like, you know, you could do these for at least an hour all by themselves.
Absolutely.
You know, so.
And then this one was interesting to us. And Catherine and I, when we were selecting these questions, what's our role, being the people in this room, I suppose, what's our role in addressing child poverty?
Right, okay.
And for us that raised quite a number of questions around, do we have a role in addressing child poverty, or is the arts better used to address the symptoms of child poverty? You know, I often say that I'm lucky in the job that I do, because having been a teacher long ago, my days now are filled with walking into rooms full of happy, smiling children and young people. And I think, above all, we all want for children and young people, be they our own children or somebody else's children, we want them to be happy. You know, and actually,
it's the essence of everything, isn't it?
Yeah. So you know, what are the symptoms of child poverty, and how perhaps can we address those through arts and culture? Although that wasn't the question. Do we have a role in addressing it in the first place? And then if we get to 5 questions, the 5th question was, what can we do for younger children and families, 0 to 12-ish?
So starting right in the very early days, right before there's any kind of preconceptions about anything. What can we do for those?
And I think that's interesting, because a lot of the talk today has been about young people accessing opportunities, either by being signposts or referred or independently. And I think a lot of work that's happening at local authority level now is about how do we actually support the whole family from before a child is born, actually. You know, the lovely books for baby schemes, that kind of thing. So what is our role, the people in this room, working in partnership? You know, what can we do to support that agenda that actually exists already quite clearly?
So we have our 5 questions. We have an hour. And that hour starts at, I believe it's about 2:25. That's going to start. So how is it going to work? Are you going to ask a question and then it's debated with people online and also in this room? Are we taking one at a time, or are we putting the whole 5 up and then getting?
We're going to take one at a time in the order that I've just told you them. The online audience may get a bit of repetition because we'll present the question, and Catherine and I may provide a little bit of context about why we selected the question and what we think.
Great,
and then hopefully we get lots of debate and dialogue from the delegates here and from the people online.
It's been coming in, Derry. I tell you, Siobhan has been working her fingers to the bone in sending us all of the social media participation that's been coming in from the online folks, and that's been brilliant, because today's been all about engagement, not only just the people in this room, but the people that are out on their device. I've had one person that was on a bus and still hearing us.
I know who that person was. I've been looking at Twitter.
Which is brilliant. And I think, from what I've seen about this project as well, 2 years of work with these 5 organisations, when I went to the briefing days, I just couldn't get over just how much sharing and collaboration there was. It was just phenomenal to have the different organisations all working together as one. That was just brilliant. And I think the last thing that Chris was referring to with his the toolkit That's an amazing document. It's got about 30 plus pages, rammed, stacked full of great information. So
Yeah.
that's something, and that's the essence. And if we get more conversation, more tweets coming down, it just broadens out rich experience.
Yeah, and I think, sharing the learning more widely and being quite open source about it is a value that all of the Bridge organisations share, not just the 5 that have been involved in Strong Voices, but the 10 Bridge organisations that cover the whole of England. And I think we shouldn't keep reinventing the wheel when actually we should learn from each other and then build on that learning rather than start again.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So a bridge organisation, if you had to kind of just describe it in a nutshell, how would you describe it to somebody that isn't immersed in this particular world? How does a bridge organisation work?
I suppose literally, if you use the metaphor of a bridge, we bridge the 2 worlds of education and informal learning and arts and culture, and on that bridge is a bridge between the language that we use that can be quite different, helping to connect the 2 sectors together, and all with the view to increasing and improving opportunities for children and young people to access arts and culture.
Brilliant. And Derry, if anybody wants to get hold of you, is that okay?
Yeah,
if they've got questions for you, how should they contact you?
Well, if you Google me and add the name Curious Minds, I'm sure you'll find a way.
Brilliant.
But I'm also at Curious Derry B.
Right, brilliant. Derry, thank you for your time.
Okay.
I know you've got so much on. You've got the debate to do as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
And I'm just, whilst Derry makes her way to her next set of duties in getting the debate ready, we've got Jenny. I hope it's Jenny. It is Jenny, isn't it? Right, brilliant. Okay, so I'll just give you a microphone so everybody can hear you, but these guys can't hear you because we're not talking to them. We're just talking purely to the online guys.
Brilliant.
Now, you've just led a session on progression.
Yeah.
Now, that session was one clearly that wasn't streamed, so, but it was recorded. It will be made available as part of this whole package of great things that have come out from today. How did it go? What is progression actually? Well, how did it go first?
It went really well, yeah. We had a lovely group of people. There were people from lots of different sectors in the room, and we had a combination of explaining what we've done as part of Strong Voices and also people getting involved and bringing their expertise and knowledge to the space as well.
Brilliant. So you had enough people?
Yeah, loads packed actually, yeah.
Now, you were telling me yesterday, about this, a continuum almost, where you either agreed with an issue or you disagreed, but you couldn't hide in the middle, could you? You wanted people to go to one end or the other. Did that work, or did people cluster in the middle? Or did you not even do the activity?
My colleague Dawn, she delivered the activity, and so that was very much about something, some training we've recently been on ourselves about philosophical inquiry.
Yeah.
And it was providing people with the space to with their bodies show where they stood on that continuum. So we asked them a question, and the question was, do you find it helpful how we have defined progression?
Right,
and so
okay.
at the start of the session we defined what progression was,
and
then they needed to give us their opinion. So we had quite a lot of people on the agree.
Yeah.
Nobody was on the strongly agree. So
Right,
what we
okay.
asked a person to do was imagine they did strongly agree. They sat on a chair and had to give a very strong argument for why it wasn't a helpful.
That's nice.
Why it wasn't a helpful definition.
So how did you define progression?
So because we were aware that there's loads of different types of definitions in lots of different sectors, we did some research beforehand, but the term of the definition that we used of progression for the actual session was one that was used by Strong Voices in the North East.
Right,
and
okay.
we defined it as the steps a young person can take or is supported to take to fulfil their progression.
Right.
And it's not to say that that's the right definition, it's just one we use to help anchor all of our work.
Right.
And so the continuum was about people agreeing or not agreeing with that definition and providing some insight into why they had agreed or disagreed.
Okay. And what came out of it?
What came out of
Well, not
that?
to give too much away, because we obviously want you to watch the recorded content as well, but can you give us a little taster of what the key highlights were?
What came out of that is in the definition we'd put support a young person to achieve their full potential.
Yeah.
And one of the agreeers said they agreed with the definition, but can anybody ever achieve their full potential?
Okay.
And are we
Yeah,
all not in a
interesting.
position whereby we can always do something else to
Yeah.
achieve that full potential?
Yeah.
The agreeers said they felt that it was important because we put steps somebody can take or be supported to take, so that it wasn't just about the young person doing it in isolation with no
Yeah.
support. And then the person who sat in the disagreeer chair said that actually steps can come across as meaning a linear line, whereas progression can be like a map.
Right, okay.
And is steps a useful word to use? So the disagreeer was
okay.
specifically picking up on the word steps that we used.
All right, okay. So was it did you find that the session took a different direction from one that you might have imagined when you went in to start off?
What we wanted to do very much is kind of open the conversation and
Yeah.
for people to be curious about what we'd done, but also we needed to be curious about what their opinions were. So after we'd done the continuum, we shared with them the impact of making progression a deliberate consideration and what that looks like, and we gave an example.
Right.
And then we were asked people to break into different groups to consider, well, if somebody's making this a deliberate consideration, what does that mean for the sector,
Yeah.
for the organisation, for a practitioner and for the young person? And a lot of insight came along, and I've got some, if that would be helpful.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, please.
So we asked people to
Look at this,
complete...
you get gifts as well. You don't even ask for these things and they come out. It's fantastic, Jenny.
We asked people to complete luggage labels, which was something that they would take away from the session. So I've just brought a few up with me.
Excellent.
So someone said to observe how having the notion of progression as a present concern affects the planning and delivery of the activity. Another person said to place a greater emphasis on sharing the journey of progression with the young person who should be at the heart of the conversation.
Well, that's interesting because the young person being at the heart was one of the key things that was coming out from the workshop here.
Right, brilliant.
And it was all about diversity in the workplace and diversifying your workforce, rather. And basically, we just found out that the employer might look from a perspective, but where would the young person be and how could they be central to the whole thing? And of course they are, so this is great. So, have you had a cup of tea yet? Do you need to go and grab a break?
I would love to go and grab a cup of tea. I'm a big fan of tea, so yeah, if I can grab
Jenny,
a cup of that would
thank
be
you
lovely.
so
Thank
much.
you.
That is brilliant. So there we are. That was Jenny Young. She just led the seminar on progression. The room, as you might hear with the ambient noise, is beginning to fill up again. There are people with cups and saucers and things, so they're all getting they're all having their refreshment break. But we're still hard at it. We're still making sure that you're absolutely going nowhere this afternoon, that you are staying with us. I'm looking at Siobhan. I'm wondering if she's had some more tweets come in. Any other comments? Anyone that we can say hello to just before we flick over to the next session? Oh, there's a whole sheet. So let's just have a look. Martin Wilson, thank you very much for your comment. Impressed by how well the polling included the live and the online audience. Well, that's always good to know as well. And we want to continue this work of making sure that you are integrated into this whole experience. That's what it's all been about. So we have a room here in Gateshead of about 90 odd people, and you are adding to that breadth and that real, adding to the conversation and to the richness of what's coming through. There's been some fantastic insights coming out, asking you guys to send a tweet in or to take part and to be with us. Brilliant to have you on the journey, and thanks for all your support, because I think that has been the essence of what we've been doing with with this whole project over the last 2 years. It's a bit of a sad day, I think, for a number of the people in the organisation, because the 5 partner companies, the 5 organisations, which I've got over to my side here, Sage Gateshead, Curious Minds, A New Direction, Artswork and Cape UK, who are just down the road in Leeds. Basically, they've all come together. They've all been working crazily for the last 2 years to really work out what more can be done for this whole issue around vulnerable and disadvantaged people and access to the arts and the culture world, and how that can be made much richer. So keep sending your tweets in, keep thinking about the questions. I'm getting a time signal. I think we're about to go live in a moment, so I'm going to stop now and just hand across to the main speaker of the afternoon, who is about to be introduced by Derry.